Hello everyone, this is Jeannie at Historic Sotterley and welcome. This is already episode 5, do you believe it, of The Big Picture. And today we're going to do an insider tour of the Land, Lives, and Labor exhibit in the corn crib, and that's the corn crib behind me. That's my car parked there, sorry. Catherine Humphreys is going to be helping facilitate answering your questions and responding to you. You're encouraged to comment, respond, ask questions, talk to each other. That's perfectly all right. This is going to be recorded, so if you can't stay for the whole thing or you miss a piece, you can always go back to the recording. It is a beautiful day out here. The wind has picked up just slightly since I got here, so what that tells me is I better enjoy this weather while it's here. That's what that tells me. So it's such a beautiful day. We will see the exhibit and talk about it. But we will also take a little walk in the garden because it's just, you have to take advantage of the beautiful weather while you have it. I can't guarantee what next Thursday will bring, so I am all charged up today, thankfully. So that helps. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm welcome, and most of you already know the drill. So we are going to start. I'm going to change the orientation on my camera so you are not seeing a mirror image. So here goes. And I learned a trick. If I look at the reflection on the back of my phone, I can tell what you're looking at. So that's pretty cool. So it's really weird, but hey, it is what it is. All right. So I'm going to change the orientation here. There we go. So hopefully you can still hear me. This is the corn crib building, and you can see we're right across from the 1757 building that during its history it was a stable. The early museum called it the warehouse, so you'll hear this called the warehouse, but it was really a stable. But it is one of our 18th century buildings. Right over here is our barn, which is a 20th century building. Okay, can you see it? And then I'll just pivot around here, and this is the corn crib building. So the corn crib building is a 19th century structure. Some of it's made out of 18th century materials from some other structure. So they repurposed. So some of the timbers in here are very old. It was just restored, and this exhibit was put in here, the Land, Lives, and Labor exhibit. It was a grant from the Maryland African American History and Culture Grant, facilitated by the Maryland Commission for African American History and Culture. So they are our pals. We got a grant. It was a capital grant. So what that means in grant speak is we got money to restore the building. This building needed a little restoration, and then to use it for the purpose that we need to use it for, the Land, Lives, and Labor exhibit was put in here. I think it was 2013 or so when this was pretty much completed, the exhibit and all, and I will name drop today. So we're going to start walking toward, I hope you can see. I wish there was a way they could shock me if I'm not doing it right, so, but there's not. I'm pretty much on my own. This bell was, that's a 20th century bell. The kids love it, but it belonged to Herbert Sotterley. It got placed here, but it's been repurposed also for ceremonies and to remember people, so we used it in our UNESCO event that we had last year. So it's used for different purposes. The outside, and we'll look at the outside some, is got basically the trades. This corn crib. If you don't know what a corn crib is, in the 19th century they were using it to store corn in. They would stack the stalks up, lay them on top of each other, and then corn was a crop that was grown here in the 19th century and beyond, used for animal feed and for all kinds of purposes. So corn and wheat and cereal grains were the 19th century major crops. So this, in about the 1980s, they turned the inside of the space into an exhibit space, but it was on a small scale, of course. But this took a lot of work, research, and a team of people. So I will be talking about that as we go. So we see there's a saw here that you hook it up to a tractor motor and it makes it go, right? Signage, so you can read about whatever you're interested in. This talks about coopering, making barrels both dry and wet. Coopering. Okay. And it shows a lot of historic Sotterley vintage photos from the early 20th century, about the skills and talents of the artisans and craftsmen. So the exhibit is called Land, Lives, and Labor, in case you haven't guessed already or read it already. So this panel talks about the corn crib itself, the building, who built it, how big it was. I won't go all into that, but when you come and see the exhibit, you can read all of that. I basically told you the basics of the history of the corn crib, but so this would have been here. This is part of the farm system that was here during the 19th century and the early part of the 20th century. So, and outside we have a lot of old tools that our museum inherited from owners. So you can see a lot of different kinds of tools, interesting tools from the old days. Okay. So we're going to go in. So this is the museum space. So I'll just try to pan a little bit. This is a Land, Lives, and Labor exhibit. There's a lot of stuff in here in a small space. So let me tell you, there's a lot to do in here. If you had, you could spend half a day just in this. If you wanted to really dig deep into everything, you could spend half a day in here easily. So it has sometimes we have sound effects. We had them earlier, but maybe I haven't tripped it yet. But it's sound movement sensitive. So when somebody comes in here, it starts. But we don't really have animals here on the museum anymore, so we thought it needed sound. Okay. Right now I still have my air traffic. Somebody's going around in circles. Okay, so Land, Lives, and Labor. This is where I'm going to name drop, and hopefully you can see that. But it tells how we came across the funding to make this exhibit in the first place, and our partners. The project director was Meredith Taylor. Meredith Taylor was also instrumental in our whole reinterpretation programs and projects. So Meredith Taylor was the director of the project, which means she takes care of the hard stuff. Okay, who's going to do what, and when is it due, and what do we want to do, and the planning, and then myself, I helped in that. I did research and writing and things of that nature. Then we did not have a separate grant writer, so Nancy Easterling, our executive director, took care of that, the unfun stuff. Um, and I see Jane peeking up in the corner, so it caught my eye. So sorry, it interrupted me, distracted me a little bit. So, then we also, had some other people. Another important person is Dennis Kuhn. Dennis is our fabricator extraordinaire. If you've ever seen any of his work, he's worked all over Maryland. But whenever we need signage or something fabricated for an exhibit, we always call him, and he knows who we are, and he still answers the phone. So we're really appreciative of that. And of course, John O'Rourke, Gus Corpus, and Joe Goldsmith, the restoration and site improvements. So part of the project was the restoration of this building itself. So we have to have experts to help us do that. And then people provided images, people provided other things for us, and they're named Pete Himmelhaber, Richard and Sean Knott, and the usual suspects: Library of Congress, Maryland State Archives, National Archives, United Kingdom Archives, Sotterley Archives, and people that donated or let us use. Mary Barbara Watson let us use some photographs. And oral histories. We have Donald Barber, Phyllis Barbara Brown, Agnes Kane Callum, Richard Knott, Philip Schreiber, and Nettie Schreiber Stevens. So a lot of these people helped contribute to this. And there's more. You see all of those other partners on there. Some I've mentioned before on several occasions. But it takes a lot of people. You can't do, these kinds of projects are not done by one person in particular. It takes a team of people. So let me pan around and just this is the intro when you first walk in. And it tells you what you're looking at and explains what you're going to see. So Sotterley has survived over 300 years because of the enterprising spirit and wealth of its owners and the labor, skill, and talent of its workers, managers, and volunteers. So this is about the people that worked at Sotterley, both enslaved, free, black, white, whoever worked here. This is to highlight their stories and their accomplishments and the reason Sotterley still exists. Okay, and then we have some quotes and things from famous people in history that have to do with our subject matter. So this, if you turn to the right when you come in the front door, this is kind of the beginning. You can do it any way you want to. There's no one-way traffic, but you might want to skip around. But if you go to the left of after you come in the front door, you see the beginning of it. So there's a lot of facets to this. So you can do one thing or do it all. So it starts at we have some indigenous artifacts here, because of course indigenous was here thousands of years before European contact. But it goes from Captain John Smith. We have a timeline that goes all the way, if you can see, really all the way around the exhibit, with lots and lots of information. And there's lots of things to read and see and on everywhere. So this talks about John Smith. So we're talking about the environment in this area, on the top especially, because just in my lifetime, Donald Barber is basically pretty much the same age I am, and he remembers a different Chesapeake Bay where the oysters and the crabs and things were bigger and more plentiful, and that has changed. So this is what this is all about. This is about the environment, the bay, the Chesapeake, the water. And it has what I love. One of the aspects I love about this exhibit is has people of Sotterley and their stories and their perspective on what's going on. So you have Donald Barber and Richard Knott. Donald Barber, African American family that worked here for 3 generations at least, and Richard Knott, same generational ties to Sotterley. He's the son of Charles Knott, who was the white farm manager that Herbert Satterley hired. So he grew up here too. So both of these people grew up here. So they're telling about how the bay and how the creek and the Patuxent has changed over the years. And then you have indigenous. I'm sorry. So we do not have we have artifacts and we have archaeological finds and possible places that indigenous hunted and lived and but we as a museum, it's not like St. Mary's City or Jeff Pett Park, who actually have villages that they interpret. So here's some Native American like axe handles, and Dennis Kuhn was able to tell what they were, and so they're all explained here. Kind of cool. So that's all things that were just collected, and as the education director I kind of inherited it, so this is where they ended up. So environment, and you can see the timeline goes forward. People, power, people, and property. So I can anybody tell I like alliteration? I do. So it has some different photos. It has maps. It has for sale, because the way the land and property. The whole point of this exhibit is power follows land ownership, and the more land you have, the more people you need to work it, and it sets up a system of slavery in our country. So this is one of our interactives. So this is based on Pete Himmelhaber's work. And you can see that this green area is Sotterley now, and then let me go back. And this is Sotterley now, the green, and that's James Bowles, and it goes through the time periods. So here's James Bowles into the present day. So you can see, and this is us today. So you can see that Sotterley used to be all the way down to 235 and Highway 4 at one time. It was huge. Okay, so that's one of the interactives you can play with. But one of my favorite pieces here is an ad that it's advertised after Sotterley got broken up into parcels. You can see that one of the selling points is that nobody died in the house since 1802. I thought that was really interesting. I always kind of think, wow, okay, that's a selling point. So that's interesting. This is a map that we have that's really was done in 1926, but it shows the land in the early 20th century. So it's very valuable. For a lot of primary documents here that we're proud of. So you can come here and see the replicas and copies of the actual primary documents a lot of times. So of course slavery is a topic here. Also there's little books that are made. So if you want to go deeper into a certain subject, you're able to do that through these little booklets here that you can look at. The difference between a plantation and a farm, what's sharecropping, those kinds of subjects. Because everybody that comes to the museum is really interested in different things, right? I think that's true. And so you might have a whole thing about this timeline that you can't get enough of, and other people don't really care about the timeline, but they like the interactives, or there's something about a subject on one of these panels that interests you. And of course, Middle Passage. So, of course, slavery was a part of our history. And these are replicas. These are not original, but they're replicas, these shackles. But it talks about the Middle Passage ceremonies and Port Markers Project, and talks about our marker that's down the hill that I showed you before in another episode. So owner-worker hierarchy, finding the story.
Hi, Jane's interrupting, Jeannie. Flip your camera. We're seeing the reverse of what you want us to see.
Okay. There we go. Thank you.
And then, Catherine, can you identify that it is? Hello, everyone.
Hi. See, they don't have a rod to shock me, so I don't know. So finding, there we go. So it was already done and I undid it. So finding the story. This is, so I'll give you another look. See? This is the way you're supposed to see it. Sorry about that. Okay. Amateur hour, I know. Okay, so finding the story. This is finding the story, and this talks about, this are primary documents from the Generous Jenny. The Generous Jenny was a ship that came here, a slave ship that came here. So we find this kind of goes over how we found out the information from the document. And this took a team of people too to figure it out. So you can look at that. More books. Okay, this is one of the things, and I'm glad they told me I was backwards here, because this is the known enslaved of Sotterley in 1727 to 1864. And it has there's a few more names that need to be added to it, but this are known enslaved. There's lots more enslaved people that were here, but these are the ones that we can document some way or another. So inventories, tax records, reparation documents, and we tried to give a little information about what happened to them. So there's more information on some than others because we have that. This is a picture of Alfred Edwards. Maybe you've seen it. So he was emancipated here at 17. And he lived with his wife and children and grandchildren here until the 1930s. So that's a powerful document. So when you come to visit, be sure to take pictures. Be sure to take pictures. Okay. This is a quote. Thank you, Jane and Catherine. This is Agnes Kane Callum. They think it's a white people's plantation, but our roots are here too. The cane roots. And the beautiful thing about this historic place is that for once the slaves are included in the story. This is supposed to be a hogshead. It doesn't have anything to do with hogs. It's a Dutch word, I do believe. But it's a tobacco, so you would stuff 1,000 pounds of tobacco in something this big. So this is a cross section, so you can see it. Another book that you can go in depth with. And this is something that I'm going to let you listen to some of this. This is Nettie Scriber Stevens, and she just passed away recently. But we have we have four oral histories here.
He farmed, you know. He
This is Nettie.
tobacco, and he had hogs, raised hogs and chickens. We raised chickens and ducks and geese, turkeys. We raised all the hogs. We had 4 hogs. They weighed 300 and 400 pounds. Great big hogs. And he raised a garden. He had a fall garden and a spring garden. We garden twice a year, you know. And he raised everything. He raised everything. And we were close to the water too. South of the water, we would go down to the creek and crabs and go down and get mangoes and oysters and that's all the water, seafood and the fish and then we go every day. Mangoes. We didn't have to go to the store for nothing much. Didn't have to go to the store for nothing much. We had our own meal. He had a great big barrel. In one corner was the barrel of meal, and the other corner was a barrel of flour. And that's you know, we didn't have to go to the store. There's molasses. You'd have a whole jar of molasses. And because we had that in the morning for breakfast. We had breakfast, they have oatmeal and molasses, and of course we had milk. Cause we had his own cow, too. He had everything.
So one of the things too is we have a day in the life. So we try to pick out a few people and put down basically what a day in their life would be like. So this one's James Scriber. So this information really came from Nettie Scriber Stevens. Okay. And then we have one on Ruth and Bernard Barber. And here is, oh, you hear our animal noises in the background? So I'm going to push this button. This is Kenneth Waters reading Donald Barber's home life. Donald Barber, I love to listen to him talk, but he doesn't talk that often, so you've really got to be ready when he starts talking. And he's immensely interesting to listen to. He has a lot of stories. So let's listen. Hopefully it will work.
On a typical evening, the children would come home after school and complete afternoon chores around the house. Since we lived on Sotterley, no other kids were permitted to come around the house, though occasionally some of the bolder or more hard-headed kids would come around. They wouldn't stay long because our parents would shoot them away on sight. Our cousins, the Somervilles, were permitted to visit because they could be counted on to behave themselves and to keep the noise down. We rarely went anywhere, so a trip to Lexington Park was seen as a treat. The highlight of a trip would be visiting the Ben Franklin store or Western Auto. Gerard and I loved to build plastic model cars, ride bikes, and shoot BB guns. We were always cautioned to be careful with the BB guns and to never shoot a living thing. Our father told us that if we were to shoot any animal, he would cook it and prepare it as best he could, and that we would eat it even if it were a rodent or bird. Needless to say, we never shot anything. We were absolutely certain he fully meant what he had said. We spent a great deal of time around the house because our parents were tired after working all day. My mother always cooked hot meals, and we never ate sandwiches for dinner. My mother was a fantastic cook, so we always had great homemade food to enjoy. The terminology for the 3 meals was breakfast, dinner, and supper, which seems strange in retrospect. We watched a lot of network television. My parents had very little disposable income, so we only did things that had no cost. For example, we never went to the movies, or took trips anywhere. When we weren't home, we were visiting relatives, which was always a treat. My father was a large, immensely powerful man with a gentle, loving soul. His favorite drinking buddies were Mud Stevens, Ireland Stevens, Teeny Boy Somerville, and Ford Barber. These bunch of guys used to hang out at the old bar for African Americans that used to stand across the road from the hole in the wall in Hollywood. That bar was the center of social activity for the local African Americans. It was a safe place where the men would drink and socialize, and their wives and children could mingle and socialize. We spent a good deal of time there. We were raised Catholic, and everyone attended church on Sunday. The church was integrated, but there was little or no socializing between races, though it seemed everyone coexisted peacefully. We played outside a lot and were very active children. There were plenty of trails to walk and streams to play in. We were careful around the creeks and rivers because none of us knew how to swim, and we were constantly cautioned about the risk of drowning. Our parents strongly emphasized school performance and were happy that we children enjoyed reading as much as we did. They saw education as the key to future opportunities. Some of my fondest childhood memories are reading Sherlock Holmes stories to my father as the two of us sat in the living room before the sun up, waiting for the wood stove to warm the house. My father always got up early and would start breakfast for everyone by cooking the bacon or sausage to give my mother time to do the girls' hair. As each of the siblings in my family graduated from high school, he or she would move out and go to the city, usually Washington, D.C., to seek his or her destiny. Since we were so close, it was always a difficult adjustment for me. Conversely, it was always a great joy whenever one of them returned home for a weekend visit. During the times my mother was ill, she experienced several miscarriages and subsequent bouts of incapacitating depression. My father would do all the cooking as well as doing the girls' hair. An interesting thing is that my father would cook an entire meal using a heavy cast iron skillet. He would cook each course in turn and then put a lid over the skillet and bake biscuits on top of the stove. One of my older cousins recently mentioned that he remembered that his parents would load the kids into the car and drive to see us after hearing that my mother had a baby. There were very few telephones back then, and my father would walk out the front door and shake his head, signaling that the baby didn't survive. And their father would tell them to stay in the car and it would return home. My cousin said he was always puzzled why there was no baby after all the anticipation that preceded the expected delivery date. These people were truly made of the strongest stuff to endure life and retain their humanity.
All right. That's a powerful oral history there. There's a lot of detail, a lot of personal experience. Okay, so I'm at the other end, so you can see it the right way. I'm just letting you see how big it is. Another thing that we did is chores. So we have every season: fall, summer, winter, and spring. So spring, so it tells tasks done by men and boys, year-round skilled labor done by men, women's work all seasons. So it says from sun to sun, a woman's work is never done. True. So there was work to do all year long. And remember, if you're enslaved, you're a child, you're already working over a full work day. Another thing that Meredith Taylor did was take out excerpts from the American Farmer, and that's in your resources. So you can go and read for yourself to see the American Farmer, the historical version of the American Farmer. So it tells you what's going on as far as agriculture. So agriculture is a big deal. There's interactives down here. There's a bucket that's as heavy as one filled with water. So kids see if they can lift it, and imagine if they had to carry 2 of those on a yoke across their shoulders. Butter churns and different things that they can interact with. a life of a 11-year-old child at Sotterley over the centuries. Interesting. And so you can see what the laundry preparation and what laundry day and what all that entailed. There's also a section about those that worked in the big house, that we call it the manor house, but a lot of photos and what different areas look like. There's one of the inside of the kitchen that the 1917 kitchen that I showed you last week, but there's the inside. It looks like about the 1960s or so. Okay. Some people, what they would be doing. There's a thing about a wedding in the manor house, about Frank Kane getting married in the parlor in February, but you'll hear that interpreted in different ways. I interpret it as they're moving into the rector of St. Andrew's Church is being accommodated to not have to do it out in the weather. And they had cake, some sweet bread and sweet water, but that didn't take place in the house. They went to the kitchen to do that. So another oral history. So this is Richard Knott. So remember, he's the son of Charles Knott, of the farm manager of the 20th century. So if you want to, Richard is still alive and with us. He is a wealth of information. He and his grandson, Sean, do a lot of books and research and writing. So I'm going to press this, and if you're not familiar, this is the St. Mary's County accent.
When I was about 11 years old, we boys worked 10 hours a day, 10 cents an hour. And in the summer when it was dry, we had a Model A Ford truck. We would carry 6 barrels of water, 50 gallons of water to a barrel, and we'd drive the truck over to the mansion and take our buckets and water all the flowers and work around their flower beds and things like that. And then, say 12 or 13, I was out in the fields with Uncle Walter Barber. We was cultivating corn on a circuit cultivator. Each one of us had a team of horses. My really good friend was Junior Barber. That was Ford Barber's son. And he and I used to hunt together, rabbits, squirrels, and then in the summer we would go down to the water and we'd crab and fish, and he would always help me around the house get the wood in. Mother would always give us a nice slice of cake or something, and but we just had a nice time as a boy playing around. And then in winter months we'd sleigh ride and get on the horseback and ride the horses.
Okay. And some interactives for kids. Here's Childhood at Sotterley, a little booklet that tells about. So as you can see, you could spend a lot of time just in here. So a really good asset. We had really no outdoor exhibits, all year-round exhibits to speak of before this. This was our first one, and the slave cabin exhibit was our second one. Now we have a small one, urgency of preservation. So now we have 3. One of these times I'll go in there for you. But as you can see, so day in the life of Robin. So this is we don't have his actual words, but we took where he was and what he was doing and the information we had about him. He was on James Bowles' inventory of 1729, and who he was with, who he was listed with. This is Robin. He was listed with Peter, Dick, and Sibley, old woman Margaret, and young woman Joan, 2 girls, Haggie and Nanny, 1 boy, Jacob. Combined value of 182 pounds sterling. So this is before This is during the colony, so they're using British pound sterling. So just an overview using history and what a day in the life of Robin might have been like. So powerful exhibit. I like to come in here because there's always something, and I wrote part of it, but I still, what goes if it goes in, something has to come out. So sometimes you forget these details, and I come in here to make sure it looks okay and everything's working and all that. So that's the inside. On the outside, we'll go back out again. So we're going to walk around this way. It's a beautiful day today. I'll take you to the garden in just a second. So they used to download grain and other things off of here. And so this is the other side. It gives some more agricultural information, agricultural inventories, how to build a wagon, more tools and things that you would use on a farm from different time periods. This is the butterfly garden. So it's not a pristine garden. It's more of a natural garden. I do need to do some weeding in here today, and I think I'll take advantage of that. But this draws a lot of pollinators and butterflies, birds. So it's just a different kind of garden than the formal garden. But it's beautiful nonetheless. I love to look at it from the upstairs window of my office sometimes and make sure everything's okay. What birds are out there today? This shell that's down here on the bottom, happens to be, can you see it? This is clam shell. It is not oyster shell. Oyster shell is really hard to get a hold of, and it's real expensive. You can't get really oyster shell. So these are clam shells. And boy, they have an odor when you first put them down, and it takes a while for the odor to go. So you can see your orientation here. So I still have my air traffic as always. But when it rained last week, I really didn't get for you to see the road side of the house very well. So I think I'll do that today too, just so you can see it in the sunshine. But this is what we call the historic core. So all of these roads here used to be public roads, actually. This one was, but no more. More signage. We're coming up on a gatehouse. And we're going to go up the yard so we have the best views. Prettiest views. There's some really pretty views. That's the turkey shed that we talked about last week, but now you can see it in the sunshine. What a difference sun makes. Everybody that has sun, every day there's sun, you need to get outside. It's just a really big boost to your mood. Okay, here we go. So you can see North Gatehouse. That's the newer one, built in the mid-20s. Older one, the South Gatehouse, where we have a 19th century schoolhouse set up. We do programs in there. But here's the house, so you can see a better view of it today in all its glory here. So just enjoy the birds. I hear a whippoorwill. Or a bobwhite. pretty today. I think Bob Aldridge was working in here. Of course, our gardens are totally cared for through volunteers of the Garden Guild. So we appreciate what they do. Helps to keep our site nice, and people want to come here. They grow all kinds of good stuff. You can also go through flocks of butterflies. So we have a visitor sitting out here enjoying the sun too on this bench. Okay, we'll go this way. So you can see here, this is an herb garden that the Garden Guild keeps for us, and we use it for the school children that come for environmental, and it's just really nice to have it so well done, and it's marked, so it's a nice education space, and it's just a nice space to sit, and you can bend over and just touch a little. Don't pick it, but just rub it in your fingers, and you can smell all the herbs and spices. So that whole wall in a few weeks will be covered with peonies. They're the big white and pink flowers. My mother said peonies, so it depends on where in the country you are, how you say it, but it's those big white flowers that come out in May. So the buds are there, so in a week or two they'll be bloomed out. The flagpole. I love the bright colored poppies. So pretty. They know just what to plant where. It changed though after Hurricane Irene, and they lost a lot of big shade trees. They had to, redo some of the garden because they had, you have to change from shade flowers to things that like the sun. We used to have some dogwoods out here, but dogwoods are woodland trees, and they just didn't make it without shade. Very pretty. And our sundial, it needs to be fixed, so it's going to get a restore here soon. And this was all fogged over last week, but that's pretty. That's the Patuxent. Can you see? Hopefully you can see. Some of the most pretty views, and of course, just so you know where we are, that's the slave cabin down there. That's the portico side of the house. Remember the road side and the river side we learned last week. So this is just started, this garden, so it'll be tall and have flowers all over. So later in the summer, my grandchildren walk through here, and they're basically walking in a sea of butterflies. It's so beautiful. Some more of the Patuxent. And I'll show you a better view of the Scriber Barber house too when we get down here. And this is a cherry tree here, so that's already been bloomed and done. I'm gonna go look and see how far these peonies are, how they're doing over here. It looks like they're just about ready to bust. So maybe by next week we'll get a picture if it's not raining. You see, they're just about ready. That's the roof over there is the Scriber Barber house, and it's more of the Patuxent. So just really peaceful. Lots of sitting spaces where our site is. Our grounds are open. 10 to 4 every day except Sunday is 12 to 4. Please practice social distancing. Wear a mask. You know, you're responsible for your exposure to other people. So keep all that in mind. But it's a wonderful place to get outside when the weather's nice. Hope you had a chance to give on Giving Tuesday. Of course, every day is Tuesday at Sotterley. You know that, right? So we appreciate your support. We really do. And it supports beautiful things like this and our exhibits and our programming. The thing that's missing right now is our school children. We really miss you. Second graders, fifth graders. We miss you. From Charles County students. We miss you so much. So if your family gets a chance, you can still come to Sotterley as a family. Alright, I'm looking for a view I can do. They do keep a little garden here, and they keep a nursery of plants. Like I said, the Garden Guild knows exactly what to plant. So they've always got something brewing over here. A new bed. So here's we call it the wishing well. It's not a real well now, but this decorative thing has been placed here. It's a giant planter now. But I'm going to end with that and wish you all well and stay safe. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next week. Same time, Thursday at 2. Bye-bye, everyone.